Well, stay-at-home orders are still in place in many areas. If that's the case, you may be itching to get out. Well, you're in luck because this weekend we're traveling the countryside with Andrew McCrae.
In the 1850s, a series of forts were established in West Texas to protect the people and goods moving overland. One of those sites was Fort Lancaster, begun in 1855, a remote outpost between San Antonio and El Paso.
By average rate of travel in 1857, you're about 2 weeks away from El Paso to the west and about 2 weeks to the east to San Antonio.
The infantry patrolled the road 100 miles to the east and west of this fort. The vast distances had the Army looking for better ways to traverse the expanse.
The U.S. Army and people out east always had this vision of West Texas and far west as desert, almost like Africa desert. And so they were thinking of creative ways to move Army supplies that didn't involve horses and mules.
At the urging of Secretary of War Jefferson Davis, who would later become the President of the Confederacy, the U.S. Congress appropriated funds to purchase 75 camels and bring them to Texas. Soon, the Army began to experiment with the idea of using camels to cross the vast reaches between the forts of the West.
It was proven that the camels could carry huge loads. One in particular could carry 1,200 pounds from a laying position to standing position, which was immense. And so the Army, on several occasions in the later 1850s, sent several camel expeditions out to West Texas.
Not only could they carry more than 3 times the load of a mule, but they required less water and feed. The camel trains were perhaps an odd sight to soldiers, but a steed that some might have preferred.
Captain Carpenter, who was assigned here to Fort Lancaster in 1857, he took a ride on camelback, and he was quoted as saying that he preferred riding a camel to a mule. It had a much gentler movement, it's a lot more comfortable.
The camel trains made many trips through Fort Lancaster, but when the Civil War began, the experiment ended. Their connection to the now President of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis, and the expansion of railroads made their use obsolete. But the camels return here each May to reenact the pack trains of old.
The visitors who we have just love seeing them. And the camels, stand there, they allow people to come up and pet them. And it's such a tremendous part of the history of Texas and also the U.S. Army in Texas.
Today, all that remains of Fort Lancaster are the ruins. Yet a trip here allows you to imagine the soldiers, the horses, even the camels that once passed these trails on the road west. Traveling the countryside in Fort Lancaster, Texas, I'm Andrew McCrae.
Thanks, Andrew. And by the way, he did tell me that due to the current restrictions with COVID-19, camels are not coming to the fort this May. But he says the fort is still open to visitors. All right, when we come back, customer support.
The pandemic, schools, and property taxes.
Join Andrew McCrae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast all about production agriculture. Brought to you by Pivot Bio Proven, the nitrogen-producing microbes that stay put, weather or not. Visit pivotbio.com.